The first college football playoff rankings are out. It's just the starting blocks, not the finish line. Something good to keep in mind. And also an exclusive conversation with former Northwestern head coach Pat Fitzgerald, which after a settlement with the university might very well be a hot coaching commodity once again. This is the College Game Day podcast. Rece and Pete Thamel. Pete, last night we had the unveiling of the first rankings, and a bit of a twist. This is the 12th season of the college football playoff, second year of the 12-team playoff. And we don't see the rankings before the public sees them. But there was some concern. They wanted to make sure that I would be aware why I was coming on camera before we said if these rankings were final, this is what the bracket would look like. And it had to do with the fact that there was no group of five team ranked. They didn't tell me that precisely, but they didn't want to throw me up on camera and me go, okay, just on the chance that I missed it. But what I did miss in the moment was it wasn't just a group of five team outside the top 12. It was the ACC, because we were spending some time talking about the value of head-to-head, and you'd seen how far Georgia Tech had dropped and how far Miami had dropped and all of those things. I didn't have a big quibble with the rankings at all, and I also don't think the ACC is out of it for multi-bid multi-teams getting into the bracket once it comes around. What were your initial thoughts on the rankings?
Yeah, we are far too pragmatic if you want rankings over reactions. I think
that's true.
Because there's, when McElroy, I think you went to him first, right? You went to Greg, and he basically said, I don't really have much issue here.
Which thought was that was a major upset,
no, I know.
By the way.
Yes,
major upset.
Yes, he is. Yeah. Well, look, he hosts a talk radio show every day in Alabama. You have to talk about something in May. You have to be a professional quibbler, right? And there wasn't a major quibble. So, no, I was not convicted about anything. I thought Mac Rhodes was pretty clear-eyed in how he explained everything, which I think is important, right? Like, we're in this generation of football where a playoff format is born and then it's tweaked and then it's twisted, and then by the time you get used to it, they switch to a new format, right? Like that's sort of been the undulations of the last generation that I've done this. So I thought that it fell in line with about what I expected. Could I, once you start getting to 7, 8, 9, like did it get, could you have danced a little bit? Did I think Oregon may have been a little higher? Sure. But at the same time, when they explained why they weren't, I said, okay, I believe their only FBS win over a team with a winning record is Northwestern, right? Mm-hmm. So Montana State's a fine win, but that's probably not going to resonate a whole bunch in the committee room. So, and look, like take Oregon, for example, they have plenty of opportunity to move on and show that, they're a team that even is quite frankly, worthy of a consideration for a bye if they win at Iowa, at Washington, and beat USC at home. That those would certainly go right into the driver's seat as a trio of really good wins, and it would put them, and they'd obviously would have an excellent loss no matter what happens to Indiana. So, but as far as that stuff goes, I think where the ACC ended up may have been a little bit of a surprise, but it's hard to find conviction on Virginia being higher than that, right?
Based on the way they've played.
Sure.
I mean, they deserve. Look, it's Virginia. It's sort of like we said about Indiana last year. Indiana had been losing, and he wins a good win. Mm-hmm. Tony Elliott, Cavaliers, sensational season, finding ways to win. To their undying credit, doesn't mean they have to be in the top 5. You still reflect what you see and how they've played. But if they keep winning, they'll keep rising up the rankings, and it's why Miami fans are upset. And I understand it, because people want one data point to be the be-all, end-all. They beat Notre Dame. They got credit for that in the committee room, I'm sure. I'm sure it was brought up. But right now, Notre Dame's ranked 8 spots ahead. So what does that mean? That means at this point in time, they're not evaluating those two teams as comparable, so that data point ends up being the deciding factor. Now, what it also means for Miami, because they get a chance to play Pitt, and they can finish 10-2. And I can assure you, if Miami finishes 10-2, while perhaps, depending on what else happens, maybe the ACC championship game is, not going to be in their future, although that's certainly not a lock yet, they will be closer to Notre Dame. And if they finish 10-2 and play well over the rest of the schedule, then that head-to-head data point is highly likely to carry more weight. And, so there are a couple things I think that came out of this. If you talk about the enhanced metrics, which people hate, what they want to do. And I talked to someone who was involved with helping formulate and or advising them. They want to make the data that they use and the metrics that they use more rigorous in the evaluation, but not the be all end all. And I think the mistake that we as observers and sometimes fans make when they look at this is they say, Miami beat Notre Dame. This strength of schedule is 7 spots higher than the other. But what they've done is group these teams. So it could be that a strength of schedule that ranks 20 and one that ranks 30 is not different in their eyes because they're in the same tier. And they're evaluating it. For you stat guys, I did not do well in the 200 level stats class that I took at Alabama, which McElroy referenced and shockingly was actually correct at the course number by sheer luck, I'm sure. I didn't love that class. I got through it, but basically they're using standard deviation from the mean and how many of them to group these teams in tiers. So it could be, you say, well, they're 20, they're 30. It was, Joey brought up the fact that Texas A&M was better in ESPN's strength of record and strength of schedule, which may or may not have been the case in the committees because the committee is not divulging precisely what their formula is. So they want to use the metrics more rigorously, but it's not going to be the be-all, end-all, nor is any singular data point, including head-to-head, going to be the only factor considered. It might well be the determining factor once the final rankings come. But at this point in time, given the way Miami played against Louisville, given the way they played against SMU, the committee, didn't deem them as comparable at this point in time to Notre Dame. But they will be if they win, and if they don't, it won't matter. So that's why I wouldn't get alarmed if I were the ACC. Now, are they behind? You bet. If they're trying to get more than their champion in the field. But can it be done? Yes. I mean, Georgia Tech's got great opportunities. Georgia Tech, I should say, has Pittsburgh who's ranked, and they have Georgia. If they do that, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. And if Virginia keeps winning, they'll be fine. Louisville too, for that matter. So all is not lost, but it is fair to say the Big 12 outside of outside of the SEC and the Big 10, the Big 12 is in a more advantageous starting position, but you have to hold on to it through the last month of the season.
The dark horse that was brought up last night, Rece, who may interest me the most is Pitt. And they're ranked 24th. Their schedule allows them the opportunity where you could see a path to get in the top 11, 12, 10, whatever it may be, probably 11. They go Notre Dame at home, Georgia Tech on the road, and then Miami at home. The variable that I think is interesting that if Pitt does emerge as a contender would come up is the quarterback change they've made. They have been a different team since that Boston College game on October 4th when they went to Mason Heinschel as quarterback. And their offense has gone 48, 34, 30, 53, 35 against, again, no elite competition in there. I'm not going to be disingenuous, but ACC decent level competition. So if they can go against the highest end of ACC competition and beat Notre Dame with Mason Heinschel, I think that's an interesting case. In a lot of ways, they are going to have an outsized say in the matter. And it's a long way to compliment Rece Davis because he had him win in the ACC the whole time. He knew Mason Heinschel was sitting there, the 3-star out of the Toledo area who no other Power 5 school offered. Pat Narduzzi just didn't go to him fast enough, Rece, to validate your genius.
You know who else can pave their own way? Iowa.
Oh, yes.
Iowa plays USC. Iowa plays Oregon. Washington plays Oregon. And so
there's a path for Washington, too.
Yeah, you mentioned, right. You mentioned the Ducks opportunity with those. Although the Ducks also have to play all of those teams.
Yes.
Opportunities to stumble and to open the door for any of those that might come out of that with a win. And I think also if you want to look at how teams played, it would appear to me, because I don't know that I look at Iowa's resume in terms of who did you play, who did you beat, as being overly impressive, particularly in the who did you beat part of it. But what was impressive is they played Indiana better than anybody. So I think the committee gave them a lot of credit for playing the team that they have deemed number 2, and rightfully so, that Iowa, played their butts off against them and had a chance to win the game. And it ended up being 5 after Mendoza took that 1 million minus 1 million yard safety at the end. But it was a one possession game throughout. So Iowa has a real opportunity in front of them. Do they have enough offense? We'll see.
What's the line in Iowa City?
But you want a chance. You want a chance, and they have it.
Yeah. What's the line in Iowa City this weekend? I know we'll talk about that game later.
Oh, let's have a look here. I'm going to guess it's probably a touchdown. What do you think? I'm scrolling.
I would guess 2. I didn't know.
Yeah, that's it. 6.5.
Yeah.
Oregon is favored on the road by 6.5.
Yeah.
And, right now, you can come out of this thing because Indiana and Ohio State don't play each other. Look, the different thing, if Michigan comes out of it, Michigan will have beaten Ohio State if they went out. And then they would, I think that would almost certainly send them to the Big Ten championship game. You'd have to look at all the tiebreakers.
Yeah.
But if Ohio State and Indiana went out, they don't play in the regular season. They would go to the Big Ten championship game. Mm-hmm. And then whoever emerges from all of those other ranked teams, many of whom play each other with only 2 losses overall, might be sitting in a really good spot to collect one of those last at-large bids. That's why I mentioned this in the GameDay meeting this week, Pete. I'm going to really strive, both on this podcast and on GameDay, to be a little more precise in my language, which you should always be because it makes you formidable. But I'm going to be precise when I use the term elimination games. And what I have meant has been shorthand for conference race and an opportunity for the automatic bid. For instance, Texas and Oklahoma, who our producer DJ tells us there's a lot of consternation because the top 13 teams came from 3 conferences, which meant that 2 teams ranked outside of that had to bump 2 teams rather than 1 to get into the field, and it bumped out. Just happened to be Texas and Oklahoma at the moment. If Texas and Oklahoma were to lose their road games next weekend at Georgia and Alabama, no shame in that, but especially Oklahoma, but almost certainly Texas too, it very likely takes them out of contention to play in the SEC championship game. Not completely, but probably. It doesn't eliminate them from the at-large pool. Yeah. So, and the same is true for Miami's 2 losses right now. Even if Miami doesn't fight its way in, we might say, they're on verge of elimination for winning an automatic bid, but they're still going to be evaluated in the at-large pool. And if teams lose and beat each other, it's, I don't want to diminish what happened. I thought they did a nice job. I know a couple of my guys on the set didn't love when Mac Rhodes mentioned offensive line play, as a factor for Ohio State. But you know what? Isn't that why the football guys are in there? There are 6 guys in that room. There were 7 before Randall McDaniel, unfortunately, had a personal issue and is not involved this year, but will be in the future. There were 7 of the 13 previously, now 6 of the 12, who played college football, coached college football, or both. And the rest of them obviously have been intimately involved in it. So I think that's why you have a committee. Otherwise, we shouldn't have a committee. If we don't want people to evaluate who's better on the lines of scrimmage, who has the better quarterback play, who has a difference maker as an edge rusher that they believe can carry them in the playoff, if we don't want that to be any part of the equation, then we don't need a committee. We need a formula. And so I actually like that. Now, reasonable minds can differ there. You might not agree with the assessment, but that too is why you have a committee. So I understand that many of the fans of the ACC schools, maybe a couple of, maybe Texas, Oklahoma fans are upset, but long way to go, a lot of ball to be played, plenty of opportunity for a number of teams to fight their way into the field, and there'll be a brand new set of rankings to be mad about next week. Pete and I are going to talk about games. We'll do our prediction 6-pack of predictions, which fail miserably each and every week. But right now, we've got a special opportunity here. We are really pleased to be joined by one of the greatest players in the history of college football and one of the finest coaches in college football, and Pat Fitzgerald. Pat's in the College Football Hall of Fame twice. He was Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, won the Nagurski and the Bednarik twice. No one had ever done that before. He's the winningest coach in Northwestern history, a couple of division titles. He did so at an extraordinarily difficult place to win, built a culture of winning there. He was Big Ten Coach of the Year, National Coach of the Year with the Bobby Dodd Foundation. But he was dismissed, as many of you know, in 2023 after 17 seasons as head coach at his alma mater amid allegations of hazing within the Northwestern football program. Northwestern dismissed Fitzgerald, saying he should have known, but a subsequent lawsuit, which was recently settled, resulted in Northwestern issuing a statement admitting that Fitzgerald had neither directed nor was he informed or aware about any hazing. Now, financial details haven't been released, but Northwestern's concession on this matter will lead you to believe that the settlement was lucrative. Now, whether that satisfies those in the public who seem to be eager to rush to judgment anytime there's any type of accusation that arises, or more importantly, potential employers, it remains to be seen. But I have a sneaking suspicion that there are many in the latter category, the potential employers, who are quite happy to see a coach of Pat Fitzgerald's ability back in the job market. And we are pleased that for the first time since all of this started to unfold, that Pat Fitzgerald has chosen to join us here on the College Game Day podcast. Pat, you did such an unbelievable job in building a winner. Northwestern was part of who you were. You're so identifiable with that place and with college football. What have the last 2 years been like being out of college football?
Well, Rece, it's great to be on with you and Pete, and thanks for the opportunity. It's been a blessing. You never expect to have the sabbatical happen the way it did for me. But to have the opportunity to coach my two youngest sons at Loyola Academy High School here in suburban Chicago, and 23 and 24, we ended up winning a state championship. My middle son, Ryan, was our quarterback. He's now matriculated to Iowa. There might be a big game out in Iowa City this weekend, guys. That,
might be.
I may or may not be tailgating at, just throwing it out there. So it was a great blessing. And then learned a ton, like just stepping out, unfortunately, the way I had to, but at the timing, guys, I got an opportunity to sit here and get a PhD in what's going on in college football through not only the opportunities of the coaches that I know and going and studying what they're doing schematically and how they run their programs, but also with how NIL, migrated to rev share, and now how this whole new ecosystem is operating. Not being in the thick of it every single day gives you an opportunity to learn greatly. And then, I'm on Mike Tannenbaum's 33rd team. That's gotten me great relationships with Mike and all the great GMs and coaches that are in that group. And we've got a call later on today that I'll be a part of that think tank. That I just feel like I've got a PhD, as you guys can tell, well rested, no bags under the eyes, and ready to put the whistle around my neck and put the neck roll back on and get ready to go where somewhere hopefully this will work out and go win some championships.
Pat, there's an emotional component to you and Northwestern that was unique. You, in a lot of ways, for 2 decades plus, defined that athletic department from your time as a player there. You left a little bit as coach, came back, and worked your way up to that. As you look back on Northwestern, just what's that emotional component like? What are your feelings towards the school?
Yeah, Pete, everything happens for a reason. I firmly believe that. And I am so grateful and thankful for the opportunity to be a student athlete at Northwestern. A couple of weeks ago, we just celebrated our 30th anniversary of our Rose Bowl team. And to see Coach Barnett, the entire coaching staff, over 50 of my teammates was absolutely awesome. And those are memories that, will always live on in our lives, and something that we're all incredibly proud of. And then, to be the leader of the program for 17 years, and the championships we won were amazing, along with the bowl wins. But most importantly, I'm so proud of raising just unbelievable student athletes, the young men that I had the privilege to coach that have gone on to be incredible husbands and fathers and successful in business, is truly what this is all about. And, I look back at those memories fondly. I love Northwestern. Unfortunately, things went the way that they went. It's all about how you respond. And I think if you talk to anybody that's been around me and Stacy and our boys the last few years, the Fitzgerald family is going to respond boldly. And I'm really proud of my sons, and I'm very thankful and grateful for my wonderful wife, Stacy. It's not been an easy road, but we let the facts speak for themselves, and we're ready to move forward and move on.
You feel vindicated, Pat?
I feel 100% vindicated. I mean, you alluded to the statement earlier. I let that speak for itself. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to talk about other things a part of that settlement, but I feel very, very vindicated. I feel, again, especially for our players and their families, the facts are the facts. And, I feel vindicated for our players, our families, our staff. And, I'm happy for my guys. I got a bunch of them out there. I think 10 of the 11 starters right now are going to go compete their rear end off on that defense for Timmy McGargle in LA. this weekend in the top 20 defense. I think 6 or so of the starters on offense. So those are my guys. I love them. I'm proud of them. And I want to see them have great success. And then, we'll see if I get another group here, hopefully soon. It's been a weird 8 weeks for me, guys. I mean, I'm president of the AFCA, a longtime member of the AFCA board. And to be unfortunately now seeing guys lose their opportunities, I'm not a fan of it. I'm a coach, but now that presents an opportunity for me, and if I get the privilege to go represent another school and a group of student athletes, an athletic department, a community, there's plenty of research that these ADs and search firms can go look, and everybody knows exactly who I am. I mean, there's a consistency level in what we did and how we did it. But also, I think the people that know me know who I am, and I'm proud of what we accomplished collectively, and look forward to doing that again and winning championships, because that's what I've done.
What have you been asked, or do you anticipate being asked by prospective employers about how the entire experience at Northwestern and what happened will alter or impact your approach to managing team dynamics and proper or being at the level of monitoring that you would like to be, so that you can lessen the likelihood that anything like this would ever come up again? What kind of questions have you been asked about the situation and how it's impacted your approach to managing team dynamics?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as the head coach, and again, that's why I accepted a 2-week suspension. I took full responsibility. I was not ever said that I did anything wrong or the staff, but that was what the leader does. You take responsibility, and I took that 2-week suspension as the leader to say, we're going to get this fixed. And we believe, and I firmly still believe, that we had cutting edge in the way you should monitor things. And I have 3 boys. I wish I knew what they did every minute of every day. I don't. But Stacy and I feel like we educated our sons and educate our sons continually to do the right things. And I feel the same way we did in our program with our administration, with the university. We had a 0 tolerance policy for hazing within the program. I educated the guys. We used our resources within the athletic department, within the university. And you know what? As I look back, there were some behaviors by the guys that I've seen after we've gone through, the investigation and then the litigation process, that, the behavior was inappropriate. And just like other issues that arose as my 17 years in the leadership, we dealt with those head on. Guys were held accountable. When there were staff issues, they were held accountable, because when you didn't live up to the standard of being a Wildcat man, that you were going to be held accountable. And I was looking forward to doing that. I was not given that opportunity. That is a regret that I have. And I would have loved to have been able to do that, because I would have been the right person to help those guys through it, showing them what they did that was wrong, why it is unacceptable, and how we're going to be operating moving forward. And like I said, I wasn't given that opportunity. I've also got some things that are a little proprietary that I'm going to bring with me to my next stop, that I'm actually working with one of my former players. So it's just not one area, Rece. It's the whole program. I'm disappointed that I didn't get the information in some areas with some behavior that was inappropriate. But I'm grateful for those players because a lot of those guys that I've reached out to and I've talked to since I've moved forward, when I've asked them, why didn't you tell me? We didn't want to disappoint you. We didn't think we were going to. And those are all reasons that 17 to 22-year-olds give. And as I look forward to the future, we're going to be relentless in making sure our guys are about the right things, do the right things, and enhancing and doing whatever it is that the university, the athletic department, and I see fit to make sure we've got the right guardrails up. If we talked about hazing, but the gambling issues that are out there, date rape, all the social issues that are out there with educating our guys on, their rev share and how to handle things the right way. It's a big pie when you're managing a large organization, and learned a ton and going to continue to ever evolve and grow and try to make the program better every single day.
Pat, you mentioned the future in this sort of chaotic coaching carousel we're in that you referenced. The future is now for a dozen or so schools that have already opened. I think one is filled in Kent, but there's enough open jobs where I would assume there's been some general contact. How have you been received so far? You mentioned search firms and ADs. Just what is the early feel been like? Not asking for any specifics, but just like the vibe you've gotten from prospective employers with open jobs.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate. Like I said earlier to Rece's question, I feel fully vindicated. It's been great working through this process. There's been conversations with a lot of folks. It's been face to face. It's been on Zoom. It's been phone calls. Been received very well. You don't win the amount of games we won. Graduate 100% of your players like we did. Run, in my opinion, a world-class program the way that we did. And you know what? Also learning from areas where we can improve and get better. And I think when people look at what we did collectively, they see a complete package, a program that competed for championships. Yeah, did we have some dips? Well, yeah, it's the reality of college football, but we fought through them. I look at that 23 team. We had a couple of tough seasons. That 23 team, we got some areas fixed, corrected, improved. That team goes on to win 8 games. And I'm really proud of that group with everything that they went through. And it was my staff and my guys. And so I think people look at that going, yeah, you maybe had a couple of tough years, but you got it corrected, you got it fixed. 2020 Big Ten West champs. Had those guys from the Columbus on the ropes in Indianapolis. Had them in 18 on the ropes. We just didn't finish the job. And I know how to build a program. I know how to run a program. We know how to compete for championships and graduate guys and develop guys to be prepared for life. Am I disappointed in some things that happened? Absolutely. I'm going to use that as fuel as we move forward and do a better job as a leader. And, to answer your question shortly, Pete, it's been perceived, I think, in a very positive fashion, and just hopeful this is going to work out and find the right fit for an institution and for me, and we can just go win championships. And then the next step would be to sustain it.
Obviously, you were in the middle of this, but it appeared to me on the outside path that your best teams were ones that you might have gotten guys who were a little under recruited. You developed them. They got older. And when they were older, they were really, really good. That seems more difficult to do in this generation era of college football. You mentioned getting a PhD in the way the sport was operating right now. How will that impact your roster construction, your recruiting, your work of the portal, all of those types of things? And I realize that some of that will be dependent on where you are, but generally speaking, philosophically, how will you approach those things maybe differently in this era of college football than you did at a high-level academic institution like Northwestern in the previous era?
Well, the old era is dead, right? We don't see dinosaurs walking around anymore because you have to evolve. And, if you're a head coach that doesn't understand that, then your days are limited. And that's just the reality of college football. As I look to the next destination for me, I'm asking questions about what's our vision going to be collectively, and are we going to be aligned on that vision to go compete for championships? So that's the rev share. What is that number? How do we then move forward with real NIL to give ourselves the opportunity to find financial opportunities for the players above just the rev share number that you're getting? That's the reality of college football today. That takes everybody in that community. It takes the head coach. It takes the AD. It takes the marketing folks. It takes alignment with the chancellor, the president. Compliance has to be on board, and you have to do those things within the guardrails of the rules, the way they're set up, and then be nimble enough and flexible enough as these rules continue to change and move and evolve to do that. So you're going to have to work through it just similar to the NFL. You have a structure with the general manager that's going to be your right-hand person. With your director of player personnel, not only for your high school recruiting, kind of like your offensive coordinator, your portal evaluation, and then ultimately recruiting and plugging and playing that in, from that standpoint as your defensive coordinator. And then the secret sauce is going to be hiring the right staff that are going to build the right relationships. So when you bring players in out of high school, you're continuing, though, that I still think developing your homegrown talent is going to be the differentiator as we move forward. The new zero is the revenue share number. And what's going to be the separator is what you get with the real NIL, and then how your staff is able to build real relationships and showing value in that staff, developing your homegrown talent to keep them going on this direction. Hey, the better you get as a player internally, the more money you're going to get. All right. The more money you're going to get, the better you're probably playing. And the better you're playing and the more money you get, you're probably more marketable for Sunday. Like, this is not rocket science. But when you turn the dial too much for a player that maybe isn't that level because you want to keep them, you're worried about what fans say on X, you're going to have really challenging conversations. And it's just the reality. That's where I've done the research. There's plenty of people out there that I've gotten connections with now that you're able to take a lot of this information. You don't have it like the NFL yet, but more that we do this, the more years, the more contracts, real numbers are being put in, and you can really start to say, hey, here's over metrics what your real profile is a player. Here's where that kind of fits financially, and then here's where we see, you fitting into our big pie that we have from this number. It's not infinite money. It's just not. And so at most schools. And so you've got to think smarter. You've got to have a better plan. And if you've got the right relationship and the right alignment, anybody can win a championship. Like I love what's happening in Indiana. You've got a great head football coach with alignment with the AD, with donors that said, we want to compete and win championships. And they've put everything in alignment. And that fan base has been awesome. I watched that team play against Iowa out in Kinnick, and wow, just so impressive. I mean, to say the least. So, the fans on X are saying, well, if Indiana can do it, why can't we? Well, Indiana's figured it out, and the credit should go to them.
I was going to ask you to peek at the syllabus of your PhD courses here for some of the places that you've gleaned ideas from. You answered maybe with Indiana. I jumped to my question a little bit by mentioning them. But as you've traveled around NFL, college, is there a stop or two that maybe resonates that is going to shape you philosophically, Pat?
Yeah, I think what you have to be able to do, first of all, Pete, is what is the philosophy of the university that you're taking over, and where do they see this fitting into the bigger picture of the university and the athletic department? You've got to be all in if you want to compete for championships in football. What's happened is 0 was kind of how you could get to bowl games. Well, that's now whatever your rev share number is, that's going to get you into the postseason. And whatever is above that rev share number is going to what really makes it the difference in being able to retain your roster and then getting the right portal players to fit the holes that maybe you have within your roster. No longer is it a 4-year plan, guys. It's a 1-year plan. Your roster is portal window to portal window, minus injuries and minus underachieving players. And you've got to mitigate that. And so, how do you mitigate it? You've got to have great systems in place in your evaluation. Gone kind of I'm the linebacker coach. I'm the final say in who we recruit, where we recruit those linebackers. You've got to have that general manager with his or her, system in place that's in aligned with the head coach, that we're evaluating the right way. And then the valuation of them financially. Again, like I said earlier, you don't have infinite numbers. So there's a lot of schools doing it right. I think where some schools are getting in trouble in my evaluation, as I've been out here with the PhD, is just you're stuck to the old way. I went into these kids' homes, I recruited them. They're my guys, and they are, but you've got to be able to have those really tough conversations with them and say, just sorry, Fitz, you're just not the all-American linebacker that we thought you were going to be. Here's where your number is. We're not giving up on you, but this is the reality. Now, for the kids, they can say, Coach, I trust you. I believe in you. I'm going to stay. And is there a chance for me to keep going up? Yeah, of course there is. Or they're going to say, you know what, I think this isn't the right fit for me anymore. They're going to move elsewhere. And that's the reality of college football. And you can't be emotional about it. I think you got to be pragmatic. I think you have to have a plan. I think you have to execute your plan and then be flexible enough to just be nimble when things happen, that you don't overreact financially that then impacts the rest of your locker room.
Hearing you talk and knowing you, I'm sure that you have an outline of who you would like to have on staff. And obviously you'd have to recruit them and decide, they would have to make decisions. What I'm asking you is this: given the new challenges here, there it is. All right there. We've got
syllabus. Yeah.
How many more positions, how much bigger is that staff than what you worked with at Northwestern? How many more people roughly? Give me an idea of the comparison of the size of the staffs you're talking about.
Yeah, a little bit proprietary, but macro level, I'll share, no problem. Your GM now has to be very similar to the NFL, right? And we have to be in constant communication. Ultimately, someone's going to have 51% of the vote and about 10 to 20 decisions maybe throughout the year. I think both of those people, the head coach and the GM, have to be competitive enough and humble enough to look at each other and be like, all right, put that decision up on the board, and we're going to look at it in 3 months or 6 months, and we're going to have real dialogue here about, did we make the right decision, and then evaluate it so you can keep getting better as a tandem. Underneath that, just think about it like a program, right? Your offensive coordinator is going to run, your high school recruiting, and underneath that is layers, right? Your evaluators, your on-campus recruiting folks, The liaisons to your high school, very similar to kind of your traditional there, but instead of necessarily being, I would say, recruiters, you've got to have evaluators. You've got to really think hard about, that NFL model where they've really gone out and you've got experts in O-line play, experts in quarterback play, which is essential. We should start there. Experts in your skill positions, experts in the back end. And those people gone is, my old world guys, it was like, all right, what 22-year-old that's really bright can we bring in here, pay him like nothing, and we can teach him how to watch tape? Like, those days are over if you want to compete for championships and get in the playoff. They just are. And then you've got to have the same thing for the portal. Doing a lot of research, like I said earlier, being a part of the 33rd team, you can look at the teams that are over 40 transfers. I'm not going to name them. You guys can have your research folks do it. Didn't play very well early. You're just bringing in way too much change early. Now, some of those schools are getting a little better, but how do you create the culture with the 40 plus? And again, people use kind of Coach Prime originally. A lot of guys came with him. I might use Coach Signetti. A lot of guys from JMU. Those work a little bit, but that's not what Indiana's doing now. Like there's this plan for sustainability that you have to have where you're building it internally, and then you're bringing in the right players to fill those holes at those key positions to make an instant impact through the portal.
You mentioned, Pat, Mike Tannenbaum's 33rd team, which is like a think tank, if our listeners don't know. Tony Petitti was working for the 33rd team before he became the Big Ten commissioner.
I thought that was North Carolina. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm not touching that one.
Yeah, no, you don't have to. You don't have to.
That one.
Yeah. You don't have to. Who else has been particularly generous during this time for you, inviting you in? Because, I'd imagine there's a lot of learning here, Pat, right? Yeah. Hey, how does the salary cap get structured? That's all, it's like the Good Will Hunting chalkboard a little bit, I would think, just from what you were used to. Again, the receivers coach recruits the receivers and line. Walk me through a little bit of how that process of learning. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, well, that weekly think tank has been great. It's been a little tough. Per se for me to be on those calls and interact during the fall when I've been helping out at my boys' high school, but I'd get a video of that and I'd go through it. And Mike has been phenomenal, and then tap me into other people around the NFL. And that's really where I've tried to circle around the NFL, folks that have connections there, former scouts. I mean, I've got more NFL scouts that went through my recruiting office in GA, I think, than any other college football coach over the last decade. So, how does your organization do this? How do you guys go about the salary cap? Then talking to head coach friends that I have in the NFL, your priority positions. I mean, everybody knows it, right? The quarterback, it's essential it's a non-negotiable. It has to be right. You've got to have you got to have a backup, unfortunately, because of the injury nature of that position. Staying on offense with that left tackle, right tackle. You got to have wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 wired and in place. That can go score, and a back that can then do the things you need him to do offensively, and then kind of just put together your salary cap numbers throughout then the rest of the offense based on, what for me specifically, when I take over a program, what the talent is that we have within the locker room on that side of the ball, and then figure out what our holes are, and then flip it over on defense, your edge rushers and elite level, 3 technique, your cover corners. And then, hopefully we've got great, just football IQ, smart, really talented safeties and linebackers that we can then again assess that side of the ball. And it's just, again, it's a pie, guys. It's a pie chart. I know I'm a Northwestern grad, but it's not that smart. I can pull up the file and, you kind of got to be around X amount of percent for the O-line and X percent for the quarterback. And so you've got to evaluate all that stuff. So, specifically, I'd rather keep that a little proprietary because I'm going to work with some of those guys when I'm either going to hire them or I'm going to use them as consultants when I go. But it's amazing when you're not employed, how many people will talk to you. And a lot of my friends let me go in. I mean, again, I've been at a bunch of training camps, over the last couple of years. I went to a couple schools, and the head coach asked me to come in and take a look. What do you think of our ODK at practice, sit in meetings? Here's what we're doing in recruiting. Again, I prefer to keep that private between me and those coaches. And just watching and talking, it's not, I think it seems a little complicated if we keep in our mind the old way it was, and that's my hand. That's gone. you have to be moving forward with this new world. And the one thing I know is going to be for sure is when I take somewhere over here, whenever it does, hopefully, it will be completely different in a year from now, and for sure completely different in 3 to 5 years from now. So I don't think this evolution of college football is here to stay. The only thing that's here to stay is change.
There are so many jobs open right now. And I think of the LSU situation. Brian Kelly's an excellent football coach. You don't win as many games as he has without being a great coach. But the first thing that people said when he went there, and while there might have been other factors, they said he didn't fit. He didn't fit at LSU. Where do you fit best? Not specifically, but I'm not trying to put you in that box.
Sure.
But generally speaking, where's your fit?
Yeah, I think my fit is at a school that has alignment. And I say that because when I was with Jim Phillips, who's now the great commissioner of the ACC, and we had alignment moving out of the athletic department through our board, up through the president's office. I mean, we were competing and winning championships. I mean, we had this thing rolling. And then as some things change, it changes. And so that's, for me, that's what I'm trying to evaluate on my end. I want someone that wants to, and I hate the war, but being in a foxhole together with an AD, like we are doing this as partners together. And I hope there's a great basketball coach and a great athletic department. I mean, Stacy and I used to go support Kate Drohan and the softball team. I was at the softball world Series. Like all those things are things we really enjoy doing, being a part of the greater campus and community with it as a whole. But you've got to be aligned. I'm watching this from afar, and it could be the head coach, it could be the AD, it could be the board, it could be the president, chancellor. If everybody's not aligned, it's just not going to work. This thing is too hard. It's too competitive. These dollars are real. Like this is not some made up thing here. Like, and again, we can bring up some of the schools that are on the rise. They've said, we want to do this. We want to do this together. And, so impressed with what Clark Lee's doing. I mean, I can go on and on with a ton of coaches that I think have just done a great job of building their program. The university and the athletic department have seen the value, and the community has just totally embraced it. And it's just so fun to watch. And then I watch the other side, and there's a lot of great coaches that it's just not there. It's just not happening. And I don't know those specific reasons why in all of them. I wasn't there day to day. But that's where I fit, Rece. I've told that to the folks I've talked to. Like, listen, here's who I am. And this is how we're going to do things, running the structure of the organization. Here's who we're going to be O&D. And special teams. And here's who I'm going to be 365 days a year. Am I the guy you want? Will I be a great staff? Absolutely. People that have worked with me, there's a reason why they stayed with me so long. Like we do things and we try to do things the right way by people. And we try to build genuine, authentic relationships. And we're going to have very high standards and high expectations of behavior in everything we do. And then we're going to go fight our tail off to win championships. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think some schools understand what it takes to get there and how hard it is and what you have to do to get there. And I think I'm a great fit for the schools that want to, and the schools that are like, yeah, we think we kind of maybe want to. I'm not sure that's going to be the right fit for me either. And that's okay. And that's okay.
Pat, you've obviously coached your sons the last couple of years. Your coaching itch has been scratched. You clearly are very passionate about getting back to being a college football coach. What have you missed about being a college football coach?
Competition. I mean, we've competed at the highest level in the state of Illinois. I'm proud of it. Thank you to Bo Deschro and the staff, and Genevieve Atwood, the AD, and Pete Devine, the great D coordinator, and Tim Devine, our principal, and Tyler Vredenberg, our OC, and Father Greg. It's been awesome. Like, it's been a blessing. It truly has been. Like I said earlier, everything happens for a reason. And would I have been able to be there with my two youngest sons? No. So again, I'm very thankful for that and very appreciative. But recruiting battles, like, let's roll. I want to take the coat off, roll the sleeves up, and let's go get Pete. Like, what do we got to do to get Pete? Who's the champion? How much we got to pay him? Let's go to the school. Who's Pete's girlfriend? All right, great. Let's go into bill. Like all those things. I love that competition. I loved identifying guys in recruiting that we felt, for whatever reason, fit us. We always wanted smart IQ guys. Randy Walker, God rest his soul. He said, it's one thing to be a 4.0 Monday through Friday, but we got to find a lot of guys that are 4.0 on Saturday. And I thought we did a great job of identifying those guys that loved football. And then we wanted it to be about something bigger than ourselves. and being a part of a family. We had guys from 26, like people have asked me, can you come recruit here? I'm like, I had guys, my last roster had 26 different states on my roster. Of course I can come recruit there. Like this, recruiting is about being genuine, being authentic, being truthful, being honest, and again, finding guys that fit what you're trying to do. So, yeah, man, I've missed that competition. And then, just the competition at the highest level collegiately. Some people have asked me, do you want to coach in the NFL? I would. Sure. I'd love to. I'd love to go. I mean, great friends with John Harbaugh and a lot of other guys that, Pete Carroll was gracious enough to let me go out to Seattle, 3-day, unbelievable. Like I can go on and on with the list of guys that were incredible to me and allowing me to grow professionally. Do I think I could go bring what we do and win a Super Bowl? Absolutely. I just don't think that timing is going to play out with where things are going to go based on the interest to this point. And, we'll see how that plays out, but I want to coach at the highest level, want to win championships with great people and just be aligned. It's simple to say, but hard to do.
I would assume that at this stage in your life, you don't have to coach, you want to coach. So when this opportunity comes and the opening day, the opening Saturday comes and you're leading a team out on the field, I know you hope that's next season. What do you think your emotions will be at that time?
I'm going to have to check them earlier that day, buddy. I mean, Rece, listen, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. But it's not going to be about me. It's going to be about our program. It's going to be about our players. And my job is to be emotionless so I can go manage the game like I did and win all the one-score games we want to make. We found a way in the margins, guys. It wasn't anything other than that. So, I'll have a job to do that day. I think the week leading up to that, there's going to be a lot of time spent on the elliptical or going for some walks in my time, just getting the emotions in the right spot. And, the guys who played for me and my staff, they'll tell you, I used to say all the time, pardon my passion. If my passion offends you, then I'm sorry, but not sorry. So I'm going to have to make sure that that's in the right order so we can manage the game. But it'll be about the players. It always will be about the players and making sure we do everything we can to make them go out and execute and win that opening game. I mean, sadly, tragically, I lived through it when I led the guys out of the tunnel at Miami, Ohio, Randy Walker's alma mater. I mean, you want to talk about emotion. I mean, that was an emotional night. That's a night I'll never forget with the Walker family there with us, 31 years old, leading our team out, which should have been Randy leading his team out of the tunnel into the alma mater. I mean, those are unbelievable memories and emotional memories, but ones that you learn from, you grow from, and when you have to live through some things like that, obviously it won't be anything like that the next time I lead a team out of the tunnel, but you draw strength upon those experiences.
Pat, we wish you well, and thank you so much for choosing us to speak. We hope it works out just the way you want, and we're happy that it appears you're on your way back to college football because I think. I'm not going to speak for Pete. I'll speak for myself. I think the game's a better place when you're in it, and we're happy for you and hope it works out well for you.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it, Pete. Thank you for having me on. And Rece, I look forward to going to another institution and having a bunch of fighting Rece Davises out there. All right, we'll have a new shirt and a new slogan, and you go back to that time. I mean, those were fun times and great memories. But thanks, guys, for having me on. Look forward to it. And hey, to all the college football fans out there, this is the best time of the year. Champions are crowned in November. And buckle it up, man. This is going to be a great month. And just looking forward to seeing how this thing finishes and then on to the playoff. That was awesome last year.
So, Pete, Pat Fitzgerald, I assume that he's going to wind up with a job. And I think most people know, but there was a comment made, Northwestern sort of upstart team, and I think it was Joey Galloway made some comment that they had a bunch of Rece Davises running about. They're basically casting aspersions at their athletic ability. Pat ran with it, made a joke. It was all funny, and it was all in good humor, and I got a kick out of it. But to show kind of what kind of guy he is, or at least has been to me, I was in my house on a Sunday afternoon, and the phone rings. It's Pat Fitzgerald, and I pick up and said, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And he said, "Look," he goes, "I just wanted," he said, we don't want to offend you. I'm not trying to, bust your chops." I'm like, "Pat, I know I was a well below average high school athlete. This is not news to me." And besides, it was really funny. It's all good. But he was concerned that, I was taking it that they were, taking some shot at me and some of their players, and stuff. And he was concerned about that. Yeah. So, I've always had a great deal of respect for him. I'm not, not trying to come on a podcast and you and I, when we do these, he's bound legally what he can say and what he can't say. We want to ask the questions so that, nobody wants to be criticized. They didn't ask these questions. Things been settled. Northwestern made a statement. Yeah. He feels vindicated. I know in my personal experience what kind of person I believe him to be. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know every single thing that happened at Northwestern and, who was responsible and who wasn't. But I think he deserves another shot, and I hope he gets it, and I think he'll do great at it. I really believe that.
Yeah, it wasn't our place to sit there and say this job, that job, whatever it is. But right. I just do know generally from sources there's been a significant amount of interest. Now, some of it is you can't go talk to Jason Candle right now or whatever. Sitting head coaches, it's hard to go talk to right now. And if you're a coach who's sitting out, like Dave Clawson is and Jimbo Fisher is, et cetera, there's easy free access to just go and start developing dialogue. So, there has been, I'm confident to say, significant interest on the landscape in Fitzgerald. Whether that ends up, becoming a match and formalized, we'll see over the upcoming weeks as things move on here. But opportunity certainly looms there. I think my takeaway from the interview, Rece, is a little bit of the psychology of what he has just gone through the last 2 years. And I felt like as we were trying to push the interview forward, he kept going back. And I think that to me, as I was trying to push it forward to this cycle and where we're going, and he kept going back to people weren't talking about what happened. I think that's just a little bit of a window into the psychology of going through a difficult time like that. And it's still so on the forefront of his mind in that sense. But I appreciate his candor and his transparency. And it has obviously been a tumult of emotions for him as he now is reentering the public.
You said it's not our place, but we do have a podcast, man. It just feels like Penn State. I mean, I don't know, I don't know anything about it. I'm not divulging anything that, you haven't shared anything. You keep your sources close to the vest, but, they're not the only place, but I guess maybe it's just a Big Ten heritage and the success he had in the conference, but we'll see. And we wish him well and glad that that's behind everybody. And hopefully those who also, be remiss not to say that I hope that those players who were impacted by the hazing, because though Pat Fitzgerald was not found liable and in fact was found not to have known, according to Northwestern's statement, no one disputes that it happened. And so we also want to keep in mind that I hope that the people who were affected by that, the players who were affected by the hazing incidents, I hope that they have moved forward and recovered and things are going well for them as well. We'd be remiss if we didn't.
It's a great sentiment.
If we didn't
well said.
Put that out there, because that's the thing that gets lost sometimes. You talk to a guy who was found, there's a vindication that comes along with what I would assume would be millions of dollars, considering it's a $130 million lawsuit. And he is vindicated by both the statement and by the financial compensation of that settlement. But nowhere in there did they say it didn't happen. So, those people are to be remembered too. And I know a number of them also have been settled with by the university. So hopefully that is a thing of the past. And hopefully things like that will be extraordinarily rare in the sport, if not hopefully altogether eliminated. But humans being what we all are, mistakes will be made from time to time. On a much lighter note, mistakes are made regularly of far less consequence, but a lot more ribbing, I would say, as a result of our erroneous picks. You ready to do a 6-pack of picks?
I'm ready.
We spent some time with Pat, and we want to keep this in digestible form, so we'll probably go a little bit semi-up-tempo. We'll see if you and I can do what the Game Day guys cannot do when I try to go up-tempo. Quick picks. We'll do a 6-pack of picks, and we'll start where Game Day will be. Beautiful downtown Lubbock, Texas. Big 12 showdown between a couple of teams ranked in the initial rankings of the college football playoff in the top 10. So we have a top 10 game, number 7 BYU, undefeated on the road against once beaten Texas Tech. Who do you like?
I like Texas Tech. It's interesting that we have two back-to-back very good Big 12 games on paper with double-digit point spreads. And I think they usually know something. Texas Tech's defensive line to me has been the difference maker all season. That position group, what makes BYU elite is the quarterback run game, right? Bear Bachmeier going through. I will leave you with this nugget. I'm working on a Bear Bachmeier story this week. One of his grandmothers, I asked who doesn't call you Bear, and he told me both his grandmothers, one of them calls him Cakes. And I said, why does she call you Cakes? He said, I don't know. And I asked his brother Hank yesterday. I said, hey, why does that grandmother call him Cakes? He goes, oh, because he was born with an ample derriere. So that I said, okay. So yes, Cakes needs to protect his cakes this weekend and stay upright against that Tech front. Be interesting to see how much they run him. I think the Red Raiders have a little too much firepower, especially with Baron Morton healthy.
Do not know if you're going to use that on game day Saturday, but I will say this with David Bailey and Mello Height and company, all of the interior guys they have on the defensive front of Texas Tech. Cakes is going to wind up on his cakes much more often than he would like. I will take Texas Tech to win. I think Texas Tech is the best team in the Big 12, and I think that they are their defensive line is as good as any in the country, which would give them a chance to beat anybody in the country. And with the healthy Morton, they can also score. And you know what? Will Hammond played well before he was injured too. Yeah. So I like Texas Tech in the game. I like Texas Tech to go on and make it to the Big 12 championship game. One of the teams that holds the key for how the rest of the Big 10 will unfold this season and perhaps can play their way into at least the at-large evaluation in the college football playoff is Iowa. We touched on it when we were talking rankings earlier. No one has played Indiana better than Iowa did at home. Now here comes Oregon. 3:30 in the afternoon start. You know that Kinnick will be buzzing. The dean of college coaches in there, Kirk Ferentz, he's doing it again. And knock off the Ducks. Who do you like there?
I'm going to take Iowa. The talent of Oregon, I cannot dismiss. The inexperience, I also cannot ignore. And I really think that this is going to be a giant test for Dante Moore, a young, inexperienced, unproven receiver crew. An offensive line it's found a nice niche, but they certainly haven't felt anything like Kinnick yet. So I think, if you look at what Iowa did dragging Illinois in the mud, I think they could do the same, except I think they can find a way both to take them to deep water and to drown the Ducks.
Interesting pick. I'm just going to need to see it. I agree with you on all counts, the inexperience, the difficulty of the environment, the improvement of the Iowa offense, and the level of play that we've consistently seen from the Iowa defense. All of this will keep this a low-scoring game. I think it'll be a very similar game to the one that Iowa played against Indiana, and it will have a similar result minus the run of 50 yards in the wrong direction to take the intentional safety at the end of the game. I will take Oregon to win a close game on the road. I do not believe in advocating necessarily games of chance, but if you are so inclined, I would be very wary about laying the number. But I do think that the Ducks go on the road and get the win and probably get a few more points in the eyes of the college football playoff selection committee, because now with the various metrics, playing on the road is something that carries more weight other than just the subjective weight for the people in the room. It is baked into the equation. One of the more intriguing games on Saturday will be LSU and Alabama. Now, LSU and Alabama is a rivalry, but the last time that the Bayou Bengals had a lame duck or new coaching situation was 2021. And Bryce Young and Will Anderson had to fight their tails off against on his way out the door, give me my money and show me which door to leave through. Ed Ogeron was still inside the building, and Max Johnson threw to the end zone with a chance to tie and win the game with an extra point. LSU had a losing record that year against a team that went to the national championship game in Alabama. Feels like you might get that kind of effort from the Fighting Tigers and Bryant Denny on Saban Field Saturday night. You like LSU in the upset, or do you like Alabama after the week off?
Be interesting. There's been the bye week. You replace a play caller, you replace a head coach, and you go in and test it in that cauldron of Tuscaloosa, where there's a visceral feeling about the potential of this Alabama team as maybe being the most talented in the SEC. I don't like LSU's chances enduring all that change. I don't think they were like a languid, uninspired team before. So be interesting to see Garrett Nussmeier, if there's any wrinkles in the offense with Alex Atkins calling it. They certainly couldn't block, and the run game wasn't any good, to start the season. But I think the Tide will roll.
I agree with you. I do think LSU will probably play its most inspired game in weeks, because this would be maybe not a season saver, but it would certainly be something that would put a lot of salve on the numerous wounds that the Tigers have endured. There's been talk about, they weren't physical enough in practice, so they've been doing some things that they haven't done recently when Brian Kelly was in charge. So I think you're going to see a team that comes out and tries to make a physical statement. But I'll go Ty Simpson, those receivers, and the defense creating enough negative plays for Alabama to get out with a win. Last week, Virginia escaped again. We'll detail that momentarily. Now they're back home against Wake Forest. They are the highest ranked team in the ACC at number 14. If the rankings finish just as they did, or they are at the moment, and the playoffs started, which it doesn't, but if it did, Virginia would be in the playoff. You like Wake or the Who's?
Well, since this podcast has been a Mike Tannenbaum salute, his son Jacob is a backup long snapper at Virginia, and the Who's are going. He was lobbying me to get game day there, which is like me lobbying, a supermodel for a date. It doesn't really have too much impact. But been following Virginia obviously, closely this season as they've won close game after close game, and I think they win another close game. I was surprised that Wake didn't have more fight the other night in Tallahassee. Mm-hmm. They may be running out of gas a little bit. They've done really well under Jake Dickert this year and had some nice wins. But I am going to go with the Cardiac Who's.
Last Saturday after the show, one of our intrepid producers and proud Virginia alum, Jeff Brown, somewhat affectionately referred to as Cavman. We call him Cavman. He said to me, a whole lot of Virginia slander on that show. And I said, you know what, Cavman, you're right. There was a lot of slander. Stanford Steve and I talking about the ability for Cal to hand one to Virginia. Virginia, 3 of the previous 4 games have been in overtime. They've been outgained in the previous 3 games. They've broken 300 yards of offense only one time. All of those things. I think I used the phrase begging to lose. I took Cal as the super dog. I was getting 5.5. Looked like I was in pretty good shape, but the Who's were going to come out. And Cam Robinson intercepted a pass late. And he said, you know what, you Virginia slanderers? Let me show you why gambling and picking against the Who's and Superdog is wrong. And so he weaved his way with like 11 seconds left in the game, through the sturdy Golden Bear offense trying to make a tackle after the pick. And he tiptoed down the sideline and he gave the Cavaliers the cover and the victory. So there will be no more Virginia slander, at least for this week on this podcast. And I will take the Who's to win, cover, and win decisively against the Demon Deacons, who I agree with your assessment of them might be running out of gas. Texas A&M and Missouri. Drink's got an opportunity to give Elko his first loss, yet Mizzou down to a young quarterback, the third teamer.
Sorry, Teddy just tried to join the podcast there. I got slightly.
Ask Teddy who he likes, Texas A&M or Missouri. Does he like an Aggie?
He would take the Tigers. Or a Tiger?
He would like the Tiger better than a Collie?
No, he's Lions and Tigers. He's jungle animal centric as things go. A lot of trips to the Franklin Park Zoo. Unfortunately, the Tigers in Columbia have obviously, as you just mentioned, are down a little bit. Injury-wise, we'll see how Brett Norfleet, the tight end, is. He's been dealing with an injury, and obviously they're going with third-string quarterback. So it is hard to envision them mustering an upset. But look, at this point, who'd have thought, Missouri's got a top 20 team and still a path conceivably to to the postseason there. But they'd have to show something. I will say that Zollers looked pretty good when he went in and slung it around in the last game. So the Missouri staff has had a week to to kind of get him ready a little bit, settle him in. So it'd be interesting to see against Mike Elko and Jay Bateman in that defense how the Tigers do. But I'm going to go with A&M. I think it's too much to ask a young quarterback.
That I right there with you, Pete. I agree completely. Zollers looked really good. I think he's going to be really good for them. But it's a lot to ask. A&M has won games in a variety of fashion. They won a slugfest against Auburn. They've won a couple of high scoring games against Arkansas and against Notre Dame. That's really the mark of a good team. An elite team, I should say, not just a good team, an elite team. They can beat you in a variety of ways. You feel as if maybe it's history talking in the long time between drinks for the Aggies and championships. You feel like that there's the step on the rake moment coming. I don't know if this would qualify because Missouri's really good. Missouri's a good team, even with the backup quarterback. Missouri can win. I just can't quite bring myself to pick against A&M the way they're playing right now. But they played so well, at the end of their last game. Sometimes it's hard to bring that type of performance back. And, maybe Missouri can stick around and pull the upset, but I'm going to go A&M there. Our deep cut game that's not only off the beaten path, it's off the continent. We're looking at Hawaii and San Diego State, a pretty significant game in the Mountain West standings. Who do you like in that one?
Well, I really like San Diego State here, and I know there's a point spread involved, and your history of doing wraps would teach you some lessons about road favorites on the island. But look, Sean Lewis was the archetype at Kent of the high-flying big offense, and I give him credit at San Diego State to get out to this start. They're 7-1 now, Rece? Is that right? Mm-hmm. They are a ground and pound. They have a top 5 defense, and they're winning games through running the ball. A lot like San Diego State has won games, historically they're under Brady Hoke, under Rocky Long, etc. So credit Sean Lewis for having the talent and the DNA of the program fit what he does, not trying to have his system fit what's there. So that's a long way to say I think they can ground and pound Hawaii into a close victory on the road.
Lucky Sutton from the Aztecs leads the Mountain West in rushing. It's a good thing. Rainbow Warriors sort of middle of the pack in rush defense. They're not terrible. But San Diego State has only thrown 8 touchdown passes all year. Pete's 100% right. They're going to try to run it. The one thing that worries me about Hawaii, they turn it over too much. Mm-hmm. Now, they've been wildly effective in the red zone. Their freshman quarterback, who most of us saw against Stanford, maybe you've seen since then, Micah Alejado, has played very well for them. Extends plays, gives them an opportunity when things go off schedule a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that Hawaii's good enough against the run. They do a pretty good job of pressuring the quarterback when they try to pass. As you alluded to, my days at the end, and I think it's subliminal. I'm not accusing anyone of cheating. I will just say this. If Sean Lewis wants to win this game, it better not be a one-possession game coming down the stretch, because unusual things start happening, flags start flying, and they rarely go your way. The whistle does not go your way late. You need to take control of this early if you're going to, and I'm going to say he does not. And I'm going to say at the end, Kenshi Matsuzawa, nicknamed the Tokyo Toe, who is perfect on field goals for this season with a long of 52, will split the uprights and give Hawaii the home upset of San Diego State.
Learned on YouTube, right?
Yes,
he
did.
Learned in Japan on YouTube?
Yes, yeah. From Japan. He watched YouTube videos of how to kick. Thought this would be a great thing to do, and he has been. He's the Shohei Ohtani of college football kickers, at least once from Japan. Yeah. He's the Shohei Ohtani of college football kickers who learned on YouTube from Japan. But he has been perfect so far. So
yes, no, give him a lot of credit. No, it's been a nice season. Why it's nice to see Timmy Chang having success there. He's a guy who means so much to that place, right? And was so much a part of their rebirth under June Jones, et cetera. So yeah, happy to see them bowl eligible already and thriving in the Mountain West.
And still playing in that small stadium while the
soccer stadium
rebuilding of Aloha Stadium is going on. So that could catch the old Aztecs being a little bit sleepy in there in the islands. Long flight. Yeah, I'll go Hawaii. There, right. I'll take Hawaii.
Do it.
All right. Thanks for listening to the College Game Day podcast. Really great of Pat Fitzgerald to join us. We wish him well and want to reiterate again, we certainly wish the best for all of those who were impacted by the incidents at Northwestern, but certainly glad that Pat Fitzgerald, apparently, it would seem, is on his way back to college football, and grateful that he spent some time with us exclusively here. Thanks for listening. Download the podcast wherever you prefer to get your podcast, or better yet, subscribe and you never miss an episode.